Hi YouTube, Darth here. This week in the CTE, we're back to the twice-a-week updates from the DICE LA team. There's been a fair bit of changes since my last update, and it looks like DICE has hit a stride again after getting Final Stand out the door. Additionally, if you didn't know, it's been announced that Final Stand will be available to premium players on November the 18th. That's this coming Tuesday. With that bit of knowledge out of the way, let's take a look at what's coming up next in Battlefield 4. Now, it may sound like a bit of an oxymoron, but DICE is trying out a new feature called Casual Competitive Matchmaking. The idea is that players will join a matchmaking queue from Battlelog and then be put in a game by the matchmaker. This system will feature new types of game modes and maps specifically tailored for competitive play. The games are targeted at teams of 5 versus 5 and will eventually include a tiered ladder system. For now though, DICE is just getting started by finding the fun. The first new competitive game mode is called Conquest Double Assault, and the first test map is Zavad 311. The primary difference from Battlefield 4 Conquest is that once all the flags have been captured, the US or Russian bases cannot be spawned from until the team with no flags captures another point. If this sounds familiar, this is how Conquest Assault and older Battlefield titles work. The test map, Zavad 311, is one flag smaller than even Conquest small, presumably leading to more intense firefights between smaller teams. I say presumably because I haven't seen anybody using this feature yet. I'm curious to try out competitive matchmaking, but I'm not sure this is even a feature I need. In other games, I've never been a big fan of matchmaking because I feel like every match is an exercise in exhaustion. Even having the best matchmaking system in the world means you're likely only going to win 50% of your matches. I burned out in games like StarCraft doing this kind of play. But let me know in the comments below if competitive matchmaking is something you think you'd be interested in when it comes to Battlefield 4. I've heard a lot of frustration in the community about how soldiers will call out even to the enemy team, giving away their position. I even made a video about this feature of Battlefield 4 and how you can take advantage of it, or at least be aware of it. The downside to these callouts is that you give away your position, especially to enemies who are attuned to listen for them. It makes stealthy play extremely difficult in many situations and nigh impossible when near friendlies. In response, DICE has begun working to remove many of these callouts. You'll still hear friendly players, but enemy players will not be able to be heard except for very specific circumstances like grenades or other explosions in the player's vicinity. However, this is the CTE and there's still obviously some work to be done. In the continuing war on head glitching, DICE has implemented another change to combat the flaw. In response to feedback, they've modified the soldier animations when aiming down sights to now draw the weapon closer to the soldier's eye. Additionally, this elevates the player slightly more than the hip-fire standing posture. The net result is, players who aim down sights behind cover are exposing themselves more, and the position of the weapon more closely resembles the location where the bullets exit the weapon. This was actually a surprise fix that I wasn't expecting, as DICE has mentioned before when they were adding the Ballistic shield how difficult it was for them to implement new animations. In the case of the Ballistic shield, this hindrance was specifically because of memory limits on the older consoles. So clearly they found a way around that problem in this circumstance. This change certainly discourages using existing eye height cover for protection and is generally a positive step in the direction of where this needs to go. I think if it can be communicated to the player that the cover they're behind will not allow them to shoot through it, possibly through animation, that the major necessary steps to combating head glitching will all be in place. In their update notes, DICE has specifically mentioned the possibility of adding an animation that does exactly that. So maybe things are starting to look up for a working cure for head glitching. If you're unaware, DICE LA has recently changed the spawn system so that players can no longer spawn on friendly teammates that are in combat. The exclusion persists until 2 seconds after the player has exited combat. This helps to alleviate the problem of a giant wave of enemies spawning on an enemy that is already in combat. The change made this week was to add more information as to why you cannot spawn on a particular player. DICE has improved this screen so that it tells you if the player is in combat, out of bounds, their vehicle is full, and additional bits of information. It's definitely a necessary bit of polish, and I'm excited to see this whole spawn package roll out to the game. One thing I forgot to mention in the last update was the new first-person tracer rounds on the CTE. As you fire your weapon, you'll see tracer rounds exit the barrel. Now, some players have expressed their displeasure with the new effect, and I agree it's a bit distracting when you first get introduced to it. Additionally, it's a little odd when you strafe left or right. Personally, I find it's a useful little reminder of where exactly your bullets are traveling and where they're landing. As with every update, there were a few odds and ends changes. This last few weeks saw updates to Obliteration competitive maps, overheat messaging for scout helicopters and IFVs, map fixes, and improvements to IRNV and FLIR functionality. Additionally, DICE LA also re-enabled the netcode changes imported from Hardline, as they had been turned off since the last Final Stand release. That's it for today's CTE Sunday. Do you like the new changes? Do you hate the new changes? Be sure to leave a comment below letting me know how you feel about the changes on the CTE. If you found this video helpful or insightful, please be sure to leave it a like. If you're new around here, check out my channel and please consider subscribing. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time, YouTube.